Hello everybody, and welcome back to more World of Warcraft lore. Today I want to continue exploring the Eternals of Azeroth. Again, the Eternals are godlike beings who have some divine power or purpose on Azeroth. And few duties come more divine than watching over the creations of the Titans themselves. This exact purpose is designated to the Titanic Watchers, a race of giant humanoids built by the Titans to ensure that their creations on Azeroth were not tampered with or corrupted. While many Watchers exist throughout Titan cities, such as Uldum and Uldaman, those Titanic Guardians found at Ulduar are by far the most impressive constructs designed by the Titans. Ulduar, and the Watchers found there, were built by the Titans for a single purpose: to restrict the influence of an old god from corrupting all that the Titans had created. Old gods relished in chaos and destruction, and they saw anything that was built by the Titans as an opportunity to bring about discord. The Titans attempted to kill these old gods and be rid of them for good, but they quickly found that killing them was not an option. Killing an old god corrupted the very land itself with the old god's essence. Thus killing them all would yield an uninhabitable Azeroth. So they decided to avoid killing the monsters and began to imprison them instead. This is why Ulduar was constructed. It acts as a prison for an old god, and the Watchers act as the prison's guards and wardens. Ulduar holds the old god Yogg-Saron beneath it as its captive. A creature of pure madness and manipulation, a monster of control, and the true faith of death itself. It would act to disrupt all which the Titans had created if left to its own devices, and for that it was imprisoned beneath the walls of Ulduar. To ensure that this dark prisoner is never released, the Titans constructed the Watchers to protect Ulduar from all forms of corruption and interference. These Watchers were Freya, Hodir, Loken, Thorim, and Mimiron. These Watchers were built to eternally obey their original purpose, to guard the jail of Yogg-Saron. But even Titanic Watchers can fall under the sway of an old god. The Watcher Loken was named as the supreme protector of Azeroth once the Titans left the planet for good. Loken was viewed as the most dependable construct and thus the least likely to fall under the influence of Yogg-Saron. Loken was made the leader of the Storm Giants and the Earth Giants, creatures made by the Pantheon to assist the Watchers in protecting Azeroth and Ulduar. As the supreme protector, it fell to Loken to be the chief jailer of Yogg-Saron. Centuries of being in close proximity to the god of death would drive any sentient being to madness. Loken was of no exception. The whispers Loken tried to drown out were finally marking their influence on the Titanic Watcher's behavior. He was losing control over his mind. During this time, Loken's brother, Thorim, was guarding the Terrace of the Makers, while also being charged with protecting the pacts between the races of Frost. Those races, including the Frost Giants, were strong allies of Thorim and his wife, Sif. Thorim was one of the strongest Watchers made by the Titans, granting him the complete power to obliterate entire regions to dust with his lightning.
Behold the power of the storms and despair!
Another Watcher of Ulduar, Hodir, also lended his guidance to the Frost Giants in the Storm Peaks, while residing in the Temple of Winter. Hodir was revered by these creatures, and a faction called the Sons of Hodir formed. This group viewed the Titanic Watcher as the father of Frost.
Welcome to the endless winter.
Unbeknownst to Loken's growing corruption, Mimiron continued with his genius work atop the Temple of Invention. Mimiron, being the most intelligent of the Titanic Watchers of Ulduar, created his own race of beings to help him with his duties as a Watcher. These beings were the Clockwork Gnomes. Creatures so similar in appearance to gnomes, many believe that gnomes originated from Mimiron's creations after they were corrupted by the Curse of Flesh.
Combat Matrix Enhanced! Behold wondrous rapidity!
Also unaware of the growing corruption was the Life Watcher, Freya. Freya is a Watcher and a protector of the natural things on Azeroth. She cherishes all living things and even has her own natural conservatory within Ulduar. Freya, fearing what would become of the natural wonders in the Shalazar Basin, should she ever be lost, created an avatar of herself that would protect that area for all time.
Eonar, your servant requires aid.
As Loken's instability grew, so grew the distance between him and the other Watchers. He began to plot against them in order to free his new master, Yogg-Saron. He knew he was no match for the combined might of the other Watchers, so he decided to slowly corrupt them and cripple them from performing their true purpose.
Azeroth will be reborn in darkness. Yogg-Saron shall be released.
Loken's plan began with the elimination of his own minions, the Storm and Earth Giants. As constructs of the Titans, they would happily turn on Loken should they become aware of his plans to free Yogg-Saron. He manipulated the two races into fighting with one another. The war was devastating and caused damage to the structure of Ulduar, so as a last means, Loken neutralized them. Afterwards, Loken placed creatures like the Earthen and Giants into stasis in other Titan cities. The Earthen and Giants, being loyal to the deeds of the Titans, would have interfered with Loken's plans, but he would not risk eliminating them and gaining the attention of the other Watchers. Loken's next biggest threat was from his brother Thorm, who was superior in strength and fighting ability. Loken murdered Thorm's wife, Sif, and fabricated a story placing the blame of her death on the king of the Frost Giants, Arngrim. Enraged, Thorm turned on his allies and ravaged their people and home. Arngrim attempted to reason with Thorm, but Thorm was blinded by grief. The Frost Giants attempted to defend themselves, but Thorm threw his mighty hammer, which caused an explosion of devastating proportions. The result of the battle can still be seen. It is now known as Thunderfall. As these events transpired, the other Watchers were also being manipulated by Loken's schemes. Loken planted seeds of doubt in the minds of each of the Watchers, which Yogg-Saron's influence grew into pure corruption. Hodyr's original dwelling for his Frost Giants was set ablaze by a torrent of fire by one of Loken's minions. This fiery destruction devastated the Father of Frost. He retreated to Ulduar, where Yogg-Saron corrupted the Watcher. The Watcher Freya became distraught over the spread of the Scourge in her precious lands. They darkened and wilted everything they came in contact with. Having limited means to deal with this threat, Freya created an avatar of herself to protect the land as she returned to her place in Ulduar. There, Yogg-Saron corrupted her and turned her into a zealot protector of her conservatory. Mimiron was always busy working on new inventions and was the most difficult of the Watchers to corrupt. Loken caused a small malfunction in the programming of the Mechanical Watcher, which was further exaggerated by Yogg-Saron's corruption. Mimiron was convinced that his only purpose was not to protect Ulduar, but rather to build more destructive machines. With that, he created the Flame Leviathan and the XT002 Deconstructor. Eventually, Thorm would become aware of his brother's corruption and scheme. Finally realizing that it was his brother who had murdered his wife and not the Ice Giants, Thorm gathered up his weapons and his armor and headed to Loken's domain in the Temple of Wisdom. Loken anticipated this and welcomed Thorm into a fight. Thorm was weakened being away from his Temple of Storms, while Loken was empowered by the presence of the Old God. After his defeat, Thorm and his Proto-Drake were captured and brought to Ulduar. Within Ulduar, Loken told Thorm that his wife had survived her wounds. Knowing this was a trick, Thorm did not believe him until he saw his wife standing in front of him. Overcome with joy, Thorm dropped his guard and was fully corrupted by Yogg-Saron. Thorm was unaware that his happiness was false, and that his wife was nothing more than a projection of the Old God's madness. Yogg-Saron used this Sith disguise to further corrupt Thorm. With all of the other Watchers fallen to the whispers of the Old God, Loken was in complete control of Ulduar. He issued that the Forge of Wills be used to make iron dwarves and iron constructs under his command, creating a loyal army he used to fight off the Earthen still loyal to the Titans. He then utilized the services of Ignis the Furnace Master to bolster the defenses of Ulduar as he worked to free Yogg-Saron fully. Ignis created Collargarn, a massive stone construct which guards the passage to the inner halls of Ulduar, and Razor Scale, an iron-plated Proto-Drake which previously was the mount of Thorm. This corruption did not go unnoticed by the world, however. Heroes from all over Northrend had reported run-ins with the various Titanic Watchers, especially Thorm, who suggested that something was not right in Ulduar. These suspicions were confirmed when Bran Bronzebeard, the famous dwarven explorer, and his expedition attempted to enter Ulduar in search of clues to the origin of dwarves. His group was attacked at all stages of their journey, and the feeling of corruption was undeniable. Eventually he found the purpose of Ulduar and put the pieces together. Something was attempting to free Yogg-Saron. Adventurers soon caught up to Loken on his throne found inside the Halls of Lightning, where he had been making iron minions for his master. Those heroes were able to end his treacherous life, but with his final breath, Loken declared that his death heralded the end of this world. Loken was assigned as Prime Designate for Azeroth by the Pantheon. The death of the Prime Designate was considered the first warning sign of planetary failure. The Titans believed that if Yogg-Saron was ever freed, he would first kill Loken as he was the primary jailer. So Loken's death signaled to the Titans that Yogg-Saron was freed, and that another Watcher must be sent to analyze if the planet could be saved or not.
My death heralds the end of this world.
Once the Watcher known as Algalon the Observer reached Azeroth, he would conduct a planetary analysis to check for corruption. He would then send one of two reply codes: Reply Code Alpha, saying everything was okay, or Reply Code Omega, asking for planetary reorigination. Reply Code Omega would result in the Titans returning to Azeroth and destroying it down to its base elements. Luckily, heroes were able to push Yogg-Saron back into his prison, forcefully convince Algalon that Azeroth was salvageable in the hands of the mortals, and return the Watchers of Ulduar back to their sanity. With the old god contained once again, the Watchers continued to do the work they were designed to do, knowing that if their prisoner was ever freed again, it could mean the end of all life on Azeroth. So that's the story of the Watchers of Ulduar. I know there are other Watchers found within other Titan cities, but they lack the story found with the Watchers of Ulduar. To me, Ulduar was one of my favorite raids of all time. It was huge, epic, and kept me entertained for months with its various different heroic modes. I also enjoy how the raid was introduced from the beginning of the expansion through various quest lines, and introduced you to some of the characters along with some of the story, without revealing everything that you would face when you entered the raid. Let me know what you think about Ulduar as a raid, or how you feel about the Watcher's story in the comments. As always, like and subscribe if you enjoyed this video, and I'll see you next time.